Hey everybody, how you doing? Corey Coleman here. You know me, but I want to introduce you to someone who has directed a film that I honestly did really enjoy. I enjoyed this movie so much, and we'll talk about that movie in a little bit. But first, let us introduce writer, producer, director, and I'm glad he told me how to say his name because I was about to mess it up. Is Thomas Bezucha, and he just said Bazooka like the bubble gum. Thank you so much for saying that.
You got it. You got it. It's easy.
Oh man, today we're going to be talking about your movie, which I'm sure some people have heard about already. But as I said, I'm going to be throwing this back and forth to some clips every now and then. And I definitely want people to see clips from this, or at least some scenes from the trailer for your movie, Let Him Go, starring Kevin Costner and Diane Lane.
I saw that girl can't protect her child.
Margaret, Jimmy's her boy.
He's your grandson.
Just to set this up a little bit for the people who might not know what this is about, this is about an older couple, as I said, played by Kevin Costner and Diane Lane. They play George and Margaret Blackridge, and they're trying to get their grandson back after their son has died and his wife has married into a shady family. At least that's how quickly I think I can describe it. There's much more going on with it, but let me throw it to you now. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
You know, I'm gonna get into some questions right now. So this is combining, at least the way I see it, this is combining two genres that I love. This is a crime thriller slash western. That's how I like to think of it, and also a period piece. But you've directed a few movies, and all of those movies are, I dare say, very different from each other. Now, three of them have something in common. You have here, your comedies. You have a Christmas comedy, Family Stone. You directed a movie called Monte Carlo. You have Big Eden, which I think is a comedy that centers on gay leads in there. And now we've come to this thriller, this western, this drama in a way. Is that intentional for you to direct? To want to direct something way different from what you've directed before outside of the comedy genre? How do you pick your projects? And I know there's a lot of questions in one, but how did you come across this particular project and that was your choice to do next?
Sure. I think I don't. It is not a conscious effort to make things different from the last thing. I just love movies and all different kinds of, I can't wait to do a horror movie. I just like doing different stuff. I think weirdly, I do think it's funny. This seems so different from the other stuff I've done, but it actually has. I think there's an overlap, especially with Family Stone, where they're about families and family dynamics, and that movie and Let Him Go both have 10-minute long dinner table scenes right in the middle of the movie.
Yeah.
But I think, to answer your other question, it's sort of, I feel like the story chooses me more than I choose the story. I'm an avid reader, and I have been a fan of Larry Watson, who wrote this novel, and I just found it, picked it off the bookshelf at the store and thought, I responded to this story about George and Margaret and this terrible predicament, and just felt like it is a Western, it's a thriller, it's all these things, but it also felt like a Greek tragedy to me. Sort of had this logic that they're fated to meet these other people and go down this road.
I love hearing that answer because, first of all, some of my favorite directors are directors that just have a variety of films in their roster. They're very eclectic directors. I really like that you think that way. That, hey, you know what? Whatever makes sense to me, I'm going to do it. And also, some of my favorite movies have been from directors who have just said, you know what? I just picked up a book off the shelf and I saw it and I decided, man, I want to make this movie right here because this sounds like something that's a great story, and it just kind of grabbed me. That's what this movie is based on. This movie is based on Larry Watson's novel of the same name, Let Him Go. So you saw the book. You said the book just kind of is something that just seemed like that was going to be your next project because you really enjoyed it. Are there a lot of changes that you made from the book? I've never read the book before, so
Yeah.
I know movies sometimes have to take those liberties to change things.
Yeah. No, there are some liberties I took. I talked to Larry, the novelist, and I said, like, I wanted to make it really clear, like, even the best job I can possibly do with this, it's only going to be fan fiction. It's
Yeah.
not like a faithful adaptation of the book. It's, you can't do that. This one came pretty close because his story was so simple that it was these grandparents who set out to find their grandson. The end of the movie, it ends the same things happen. It's just, anyway, it was just getting other people to be in the same room at the same time, characters. But it's pretty faithful.
I have to tell you though, watching this, man, one of the reasons why I really enjoyed this movie, you're a great director with tension. Man, that dinner table scene had me on edge the whole time. I remember sitting there. I was eating something, but I'm a nervous eater, and I saw myself, and I was just continuously just eating things, and it was like I was at the table with these people. I was sitting there just eating and kind of looking around, like, ooh, who's gonna jump first? I want to show people a little bit of this dinner table scene because, as I said, I think it's such a well-directed scene for many reasons. And I'll explain why. I'll show the scene first, and then I'll explain why I think this scene is so excellent. Let me show a little bit right now. Again, this is Diane Lane and Kevin Costner. They've gone to the family. They're called the what are they? The way
The Wee Boys.
Wee Boys. Yeah, I say we daddy sound it sounds like a gay club or something, the Wee Boys. But the Wee Boy family, who, as I told you, they're very shady. They've described as off the grid. They're obviously doing something illegal because they have the whole town wrapped up. And they just want their grandson, and they're keeping his grandson almost as a way to spite them. And it's almost like, we dare you to try to take him, but it's said very, very subtly. And it's, like I said, it adds to a lot of tension in this scene.
We believe in walking upstairs on our own 2 feet.
Easy now, Grandma. You know who makes the rules around here. Now
that right there is pure Western, because that's the standoff right there, where everybody's in the saloon, they got their hands on their gun, and everybody's ready to pull. But you did two things in that scene that I thought were pretty great. You were able to create tension and suspense through dialogue. And then it went to a point where there was no dialogue. That is right up there with some of the well-praised scenes that people have talked about, such as Quentin Tarantino with Inglourious Bastards. It's particularly the table scene at the beginning of the movie where Christoph Waltz comes in and talks to the father. I'm thinking of things like No Country for Old Men, where you have the Coen scene at the gas station. So when you were putting together this scene, were there any influences that you had from other movies that helped your direction in that particular scene?
Well, I'm a huge fan of the Coen brothers, for sure. And No Country for Old Men, absolutely. But, you look at, weirdly, this isn't going to make sense to anybody, but East of Eden was an influence in sort of the way we photographed it. And Blanche ends up looking a lot like James Dean's mother in that movie. But it's the thing I love about that scene is the actors and the, figuring out the choreography and getting to that standoff. And as a director, I love when I can ignore myself, the writer, and just, these nonverbal conversations people have, because it becomes there's a Diane and Kevin just looking at each other, negotiate her putting the child down. And that's, they're just so great in that. And it's also, I love, one of the things I love about that scene is the level of thunder that's playing is like, it's as if there's a rainstorm, but my editor, Jeff Ford, and I, it was the idea I had, and it was in the script, was that there would be thunder, and it gets insanely loud. And what I loved was that you can't see anything but it feels like they're under artillery fire, and because they're all at war, but they're not,
Yeah, and also the use of the sound effects in that scene is so great too. I'm usually not a huge fan of when people use thunder to accentuate, the scares, our tension in the scene. But when you say it that way, that outside, it's just because the lighting is not flashing in the room through the windows or anything.
Right.
It's just there are moments where it's quiet, and then there's this thing going on outside that continuously adds to it, like this quiet undertone of chaos that's about to happen. Man, that was a really great scene. Your actors are wonderful too, man. Leslie Manville as the matriarch in that family, she's awesome. And what I love is what you've done with Jeffrey Donovan, who's just through the whole movie he's smiling, and he's the creepiest one. But
he had a thing where his strategy was he always wanted to show his teeth.
Really? Was that something
like an animal? Like he's smiling, but he's showing you his teeth.
Was that something on his was that his decision to do that? Was that something that he came up with?
Jeffrey. Yeah, it's all Jeffrey. He's a genius.
Speaking of your actors, I know a lot of people have already made this observation. It's nothing that I'm not going to be bringing up anything new right here. But Diane Lane and Kevin Costner, everybody thought they were so great in Man of Steel, but it wasn't their movie. It was, of course, it was about Superman. They had very small parts, but they're one of the best things in the film. So, and forgive me if you've answered this question already, but were they your first choice? Did you see them in Man of Steel together and just say, I got to get them back in this film?
I have still, I'll be honest, confession, I've still not seen the Superman movie with them. But Diane and I had a very early meeting once I'd written the script. And on my way to the meeting, I did what everybody does and sort of Googled and looked up on YouTube and found a clip of her and Kevin, not from the movie, but from promoting the movie. It was a press junket. And and they were sort of sitting in chairs very close to each other. And I could just see sort of the way they were interacting made me, peanut butter and chocolate go together. Like let's do that.
Yeah.
And so we, a big part of the reason Kevin did the movie was to work with Diane again.
Sure. No, but and then I'm glad they did. They're so great together, man. The way I don't know what the dynamic of their characters are like in the book, but here I just love how each one of them handles grief in a different way, and I love the way that you even Diane Lane's character. There's so many things that make that so many emotions you have with her. At one moment, I'm on her side. At one moment, I'm like rooting her on. She even started to piss me off later on in this movie, man. I don't know. Now I'm just speaking for myself. I don't know why. I just felt like she was being really pushy with this situation where George was trying to make sense, and I was getting mad at her, even though I understood where she was coming from.
Right.
Was that intentional to have that effect, or is that just something that everybody's getting something different from that character?
No, I think I was definitely aware of it. And, that she, Margaret and Blanche in some alternate universe are the same person. They're both, they're two sides of the same coin. They both want exactly the same thing, and they're both insanely stubborn. And something bad happens to George, and Margaret says, "What have I done to you?" Mm-hmm. And she has. It was what was compelling to me about the book is it's just, what do you do? It's there. You have to save this grandchild. What is she supposed to give up? But you end up paying a price you hadn't expected to pay. And George is there. He knows it's not going to go well, but he loves his wife and knows there's no talking her out of it. And in the end knows that she won't be right. And so sort of makes the ultimate sacrifice.
Yeah, no, that's the complicated thing. I mean, you realize that she has to do what she has to do, but it was just that's why I admired about it because there are no easy feelings coming out of this at all. But
No, and I really give Diane credit for, actors like to play people that people like, and she was totally fine with, she understood, that sometimes Margaret is unsympathetic.
yeah,
It pushes it.
I gotta say, at the same time, George was kind of getting on my nerves too, man.
What was he doing that was bugging you?
Okay, I'll tell you why. Cause listen, I always believe when you go into a situation, this is what I want to ask you. Does George just from his so for people who don't know, the character of George is a retired lawman. So I trust George's instincts when he walks into a situation. But I always felt like, even then, when you're around some people who might not be, they might be unsavory characters, you don't go in ready to start a fight. I'm gonna show just this. You'll be able to hear this scene right here. This is the first time he talks to Donovan's character. What was that character's name again?
Bill.
Bill. This is his first time meeting Bill. They meet Bill before they meet the rest of the family. And Bill is creepy, but at the same time, Bill is being cool with them. And George just goes in, man, with attitude. And you'll hear it in this scene right here.
You heard we were coming, did you?
I did. A little birdie flew over here ahead of you. Cheep, 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 cheep.
Are they here or not?
And there's a teeth thing that you're talking about that he does right there.
Yeah.
But is there okay? So are we supposed to just trust that George knows people well enough and knows criminals and shady characters well enough that he doesn't have time to play with them? He already knows the outcome, or is George just that pushy with everything?
No, he's not that pushy with everything. This guy's jerking his chain.
Yeah,
And he's sort of been a little insulting with the wife, and it's like George. It's they're two alpha dogs, and he's not trucking with it.
yeah. It's the pissing contest already.
He knows. George knows meeting Bill's full of it. Bill's been standing out in that driveway for 3 hours with a rake, just waiting for them. And George knows it.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought. I thought at least George might want to kind of cool the situation down a little bit, but I thought he already knows what he's doing. Glad to hear that from you. This is a beautiful looking film. When I say that this is a crime thriller slash western, I almost say that this is a crime thriller against a western landscape. I'm just looking at because you have all the vistas there. You have all the mountains and the scenery and everything. Let me ask you this: what was the budget on this movie, if you don't mind saying?
It was well under 20.
Okay, so by Hollywood standards, it could be considered a lower budget film.
It is a lower budget film for sure.
Well, that's why I was impressed with the cinematography that you had in there. And the reason why I'm asking about the budget is because they don't really say what period this is. I remember there's a part where they talk about George and he was going after some guy back in '54. So obviously this is something. I mean, maybe they did say when this movie takes place, but obviously this is a period piece. But it's done so well. I mean, it drops you right in that there was never a moment I wasn't lost in that period because it felt so authentic. On the budget that you have, and me talking about the cinematography and talking about how well you did the all the visuals for the period piece. How is it doing that on that budget? Is it hard? Is it difficult? Is it just being creative?
It's not easy, but it's a lot of credit for it is beautifully photographed, and that is my director of photography, Guy Godfrey, who is spectacular. He did a movie a couple of years ago with Sally Hawkins called Maudie. That is how I came to know his work. And then the other piece is you get a great production designer, and we had Trevor Smith, who was local to Calgary, and he and I just really got along. But it's challenging for sure. And you sort of figure out what's going to be in front of the camera and just dress that and not everything else. And then, we worked with a limited palette. So they're not every color in the rainbow isn't in there. And that sort of makes it feel older. But you have to be careful.
Yeah. Well, did you shoot like in a small town that already had old looking buildings?
Well, we shot in, we shot in a lot of locations around the Alberta province, and one of the towns, when they go to this town and talk to a sheriff, and then they're walking on the street and he goes into a liquor store, that's a town called Fort McLeod, and that's been you can see it in the Ghostbusters reboot that's about to come out. It was the main street in season 2 of Fargo. It's well used.
Nice.
Because I think it's a national historical place in Canada, but it still feels like a 1950s street.
It's interesting too that you say that this was a limited color palette that you're working with, because at least for me, one of the things that I noticed, and I can see what you're saying, and now that I'm looking at some scenes right here, I can see what you're saying with that. But there were some scenes with the limited colors that you had, they just seemed to pop, which gave the movie I guess a brighter sense of color than what probably was there, at least available in the limited palette. So again, kudos to your cinematographer. It was great.
Yeah. Thanks.
So again, this might be something that you've been asked before, especially being a director and having a movie coming out at this particular time. But we're in the pandemic. I know this movie, it got pushed slightly. It was supposed to come out in August. When you were making this, I imagine that there were plans, bigger plans for the theater.
for it to show in a movie theater.
Yeah, for sure in a movie, man.
That was the general plan.
Yeah. So what are the feelings now with the situation that we have at this moment? Are you disappointed? Are you satisfied? Or was there maybe more opportunity that was here with the pandemic?
Who knows? I'm glad we were able to shoot the movie and finish the movie. I mean, I know a lot of people whose movies shut down in the middle of the pandemic or had to. I mean, it's terrible. So we finished the movie. The disappointment is that we had only one test screening, which was a year ago, whatever, in Pasadena, and watching the movie with 300 people is awesome. And so I'm sad I don't get that. But at the same time, I felt like the timing, all I cared about was that it be available streaming at Thanksgiving, because I felt like families would watch it together and people were desperate for content. So, and I feel like I applaud Universal's commitment to putting movies into theaters this year as much as anybody was able to. That was great. And unfortunately, I don't live in a place where I could go. But in a weird way, I feel like because we had the field to ourselves a little bit, I worry we might have gotten lost if we had come out next year. There are going to be so many movies in theaters.
That is true. That is definitely true. I'm looking at it. It's almost like it's just going to be a glut of movies. Almost like movies are still going to have to move just to avoid like going against each other, because they only have a 2-week window of time of to actually show before this competition out there. So I do think that is true. Yeah, that's the benefit of your movie coming out right now. But with your future plans going on as a director, because you said you want to direct some other things, probably some other genres. You might want to do a horror movie or something down the line. Is this a situation of, let me just sit back and wait and see how things play out? Or are you writing right now? Or has it affected how you're gonna move forward at all?
No, no. You just see, you got to keep. This won't last forever.
Yeah.
And I also feel like whether it's, I love going to a movie theater to see a movie, but I like telling stories, and whether it's, a bigger screen is more fun for me. But if the story I'm telling is on television, that's fine too. I'm just lucky to get to tell stories.
Yeah, I mean, well, you said you don't mind telling stories anywhere. Sounds like you do lean towards more cinematic storytelling, but a lot of people are talking about how they have freedom now with streaming and they're able to tell even longer versions of their stories.
Right.
Is that something that maybe you've been thinking about or want to do, considering the situation that we have, or just as another move?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. You got any ideas?
Oh, well, you know what? What's your email address? I got a stack of them right back here somewhere. Ideas. Look at this right here, my man. I got ideas. No, this will probably be my last question here because I know you have to move on. But I feel like this movie here can be seen by anybody. I think it's that exciting. That's suspenseful. But when you have movies, especially when you have older actors, as I said, we got Kevin Costner, Diane Lane. You talk about now demographics, they come into play here. This is considered now an older movie. And when I saw it, I was like, this probably moves a little slower than a Marvel movie. But again, I think when you watch this at home and the family's watching, this is something that everybody could get into. How do you feel about this being considered? Because I'm just going by what I read. How do you feel about this being considered an older movie?
I don't know. I get it because it's the heroes. The main roles are people well over 50, and so I get that it skews older. But when I was growing up, movies I loved movies that had people that were old. Way older than me. It's a story about family, and I think it's different that way. That it's. I hope it appeals to all audiences. That it's not just older folks. And it's a little scary.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I also thought that was one of the benefits. Myself, I thought that was one of the benefits of it actually going to streaming, and it's also about to come out on Blu-ray February 2nd. Just let people know that. But I thought that was one of the benefits of having it of streaming at first. Is that this will possibly be seen by more people than if it was marketed as an older movie at the theater. At least that's the way I saw it.
And it's a hostage situation. You got people stuck in their houses.
Exactly. So
right.
if the older, family at home wants to watch this at the moment, then everybody sits down and watch it. They ain't going anywhere because the pandemic's out there. Or they shouldn't be, at least. So, last question here. Again, you have a wide variety of genres that you've worked in the past, and you said you might want to work on a horror movie. Is that what you want to do next? Actually, you want to do a horror movie next, or what do you want to try to tackle next?
I'm writing another romantic comedy, but I'm reading all sorts of stuff, and I don't know. I just something, it'll be another one with strong characters. Okay.
All right. Well, I like the way you say that. You're pretty much saying, you know what, no matter what, it's going to be good. Don't worry about it. So cool.
That's it.
Well, thank you so much, Thomas. I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Corey, thank you. It's great meeting you.
You too. And I can't wait to see what you do next. I really enjoyed this, honestly.
Okay, good.
Take it easy.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye.
Folks. Let me see. There he goes. Well, people, really check this out. This is seriously again, it's all relative and subjective to whoever was watching this movie, but I really enjoyed it. Again, the movie is Let Him Go. This will be out on Blu-ray on February 2nd, but it's out there on VOD right now. I had a lot of fun watching this. And but again, I'm partial to westerns, and like I said, I like crime thrillers. And if that's your thing, this is more of a modern western, and definitely a great crime thriller. and even a very good drama too. So this is one of the, I think, underrated movies of 2020 and going into 2021. So check it out if you get a chance. And people, that is that. Let me bring up my bumper before we go. Let me see here. There we go. There we go, folks. Well, I hope you enjoyed the interview. I hope you actually watched the movie. And I hope that you realize that even when I'm not streaming or interviewing or doing a show or anything, I am still thinking about you. So don't you ever look at me right now. Don't you ever hesitate to give me a message. kcoolmans@gmail.com. That's KCOOLMANZ@gmail.com. You email us with any kind of questions, comments, compliments, insults, input, and or advice. Hit us up on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. All the social medias out there. Just type in that information you see there. Memorize it, love it, and use it. And folks, if you're planning on coming to Austin, Texas, my advice would be to wait. But if you have to come here, don't come to us. But when the time is right, please do. Please do. Tell you what you do right now is you let us know your plans for Austin, Texas. kcoolmans@gmail.com. Email us and let us know if you are moving here or just simply passing through. We'd love to safely hang out with you. All right, everybody, that is it. Thank you very much. See you on the next one, and good night, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are listening to or watching this. Goodbye, and stay toasty.